having a house that kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Keep a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is you over 30 years ago.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And this is your mom when you drive her back from therapy.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Roles change without us noticing, and in your new role, we help you help. AARP gives you the information to help care for your mom so that you can have patience with her, just like she did with you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving or call 1-877-333-5885 to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one.
Are we there yet?
Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP, we help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. It's time! Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner.
Right there, hold on, right there. Boom, I faked him. Oh, whoa, that was, whoa.
I'm back! But Mama Babo, how you say that?
I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to drink a Coors Light.
Fighting out of the red corner.
I completely dominated that 5th round. That 5th round want me to fight.
From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
It's time!
The #1 MMA show in America. Caged in MMA.
I'm back! Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am back, ladies and gentlemen, Caged in MMA. I'm your host, Errol Marks. No, there is no more Anthony Andriosi, but I will give a shout out to him. Thank you, Anthony, for really pushing me to bring back this show. I know all the fans out there wanted me to bring back an MMA show, a boxing show, a combat sports show. And we are here, ladies and gentlemen. I am here to give you all of your needs, combat sports, MMA, and boxing, as we are going to get into all the stories that we have missed over the last 2.5 years of mixed martial arts. But no, we'll get into UFC 294 preview, as obviously Islam Makhachev. He will be fighting Alexander Volkanovski. And by the way, Volkanovski came into this fight 11 days before it wasn't even supposed to be his fight. Oliveira was supposed to fight. Charles Oliveira was supposed to fight Islam, but for his return fight, his rematch for his title. And then obviously Oliveira got hurt. He had a cut under his eye, and he had to drop out of the fight. So Alexander Volkanovski, 11 days ago, took this fight on a short notice, and they're going to have an opportunity to fight again. The first fight was fantastic. It went all the way down to the last card and the last fifth round, and honestly the last judge, and it was a great fight. So we will get into that. Tyson Fury versus Frances Ngannou, the preview for the fight of, I guess, Fury's century, as Tyson Fury came out the other day and was absolutely upset. Yeah, you heard it. Upset at Mike Tyson. Yes, was pissed off at Mike Tyson, ladies and gentlemen, because he is training Ngannou. So we will get into that. Charles Oliveira says he wants to fight Conor McGregor on the UFC 294, or the UFC 294 winner of Volkanovski and Makhachev. So I will tell you this. I believe that Conor McGregor will be back this year. The question is, who is he going to fight? I know a lot of people thought that they had plans, the UFC had plans of him fighting his next fight against Chandler, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen after what happened in the next Ultimate Fight. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's very interesting. There is no schedule of Conor McGregor coming back this year, but if he does come back, I believe he'll come back in December. Could Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez fight in 2024? Terence Crawford coming off that unbelievable win against Errol Spence. Well, I know Errol Spence wants to fight him again, maybe at the end of this year. It seems like it will move into 2024, early 2024. But again, it could happen still this year. There's still a couple of months left, but Errol Spence got his butt whipped. So I cannot see Errol Spence fighting in December. So I expect it sometime early next year if they fight again. Conor McGregor gives the USA DA agents beer and whiskey during the anti-doping testing. So Conor McGregor making, obviously making the tabloids as he's giving away whiskey and beer to the people that are giving him drug doping tests. So that's interesting, and we'll get into that. Showtime Sports shutting down at the end of 2023. What does this mean for boxing? So it looks like boxing and MMA is going to be shut down on Showtime. It doesn't look like it's bringing any money. Floyd Mayweather had a deal with Showtime, and over the years, Canelo Alvarez has had deals with them, and quite a few people. Errol Spence Jr. had a deal, obviously, with the fight with Terence Crawford. That was really a Showtime fight. So it obviously is not bringing in enough money, and it's crazy. HBO shut down, and now you're hearing Showtime shutting down. So it's very interesting. I guess I don't know where boxing is going when it comes to placing and putting their fights up. So it'll be interesting. California passes a bill to get retired MMA fighters better benefits. So obviously California believes that they should be protecting the fighters, boxers, MMA fighters. And now they're obviously passing a bill that's going to help fighters that live in California. They gives them benefits to protect them. So very interesting story. Does that help throughout the country? Maybe that opens doors for other states to possibly pass a bill like this. But this is an interesting bill. We'll get into that as well. But why don't we get into it? The UFC 294. This card is going to be fantastic. One of the better cards of the year. Obviously, this weekend, it's going to be fun. Obviously, the weigh-ins came up today. And a lot of people, Kamaru Usman, and obviously Chimaev. This is going to be a great fight. Chimaev right now is an undefeated fighter. He's been fantastic throughout the UFC. His UFC career been dominant, really. I mean, the fight against Holland, and then obviously Burns. A lot of people thought Burns coming back from that, coming back for that fight against Chimaev. A lot of people thought that Chimaev was going to have problems with Burns, but boy, oh boy, it was a unanimous decision, absolutely dominated by Chimaev. And to me, Chimaev has been absolutely dominant since he's come into the UFC. He really has been. And then he's going against one of the better fighters in the UFC. He's coming off 2 back-to-back losses against Leon Edwards. And Leon Edwards, English pride. And I'll tell you this right now. Leon Edwards is one of the best boxers, one of the best combat stand-up fighters the UFC has. And he showed Cameron Usman where his weakness is. Usman's weakness really over the last couple of years, and fighters have figured him out. And the fact is that if you're long and you can throw kicks and you can put him in position where he can't shoot at you and take you down and outmuscle you, he has had problems against better stand-up fighters. And that showed against first of all, the first fight against Leon Edwards, just absolutely Leon Edwards just knocking him the hell out. And then the second fight where Leon Edwards dominated, keeping his distance, throwing kicks, kicking him in the legs and bruising his body where Usman could not shoot at him and take him down. So again, he's going after Chimaev. And to me, when you look at this fight and you're trying to compare both fighters, and I think both of them match up very, very well against each other. Chimaev he's a very good stand-up fighter. Usman is more of a ground and pound fighter. I think Chimaev creates a lot of problems for a guy like Cameron Usman, as we saw against Leon Edwards. I think going into this fight, if Chimaev wants to win this fight and Chimaev wants to dominate this fight, he absolutely has to stand on his feet, throw kicks, throw punches, dominate on the stand-up fighting. Do not let Usman take him down. Now, Chimaev is a very good ground fighter. He's very good submissions. He's got a tremendous wrestling background. So you would see when you look at this fight, they're very well matched up against each other. And I think when you look at Dana White and the way Dana White set up this card, he knew that whoever wins this fight is probably going to get the title shot again against Leon Edwards. And obviously, Usman wants that title shot. There's quite a few fighters right under him that could get a title shot in the future for Leon Edwards. And Leon Edwards right now is smiling. He's happy, and he has an opportunity to sit back and relax and watch Chimaev and Usman beat the hell out of each other. So obviously, the co-main event for UFC 294, a lot of people sitting here and looking at this fight, it could go either way. Obviously, Usman is the number 1 contender of this fight, and Chimaev is the number 4 contender. If Chimaev knocks off Usman, he jumps either second or maybe even jumps all the way to first. So I love this fight. I think it's a great matchup. This could be the fight of the card. It really could. But again, when you look at the big picture here and you understand what Usman is trying to, if Usman loses another fight, that's 3 fights in a row. I don't know how long the UFC is going to keep him on top of these cards. As much of a fan favorite Usman is, and he's a huge, huge fan favorite, ladies and gentlemen. You look at Chimaev and you look at some of the fighters that he has fought. You lose 3 fights in a row, you're not looked at as one of those top card, co-main event card type of fighters. He could fall all the way to a beginning of a main event. I mean, not a big beginning of a main event, the beginning of the UFC card or UFC 295 or 296 card. So you look at what Cameron Usman is. Cameron is one of those fighters that expects the best of his style, and he is going to go in this fight knowing that if he loses this fight, it could be big trouble for him moving forward in his UFC career. And then the main event, by the way, who I think this is going to be fun to watch because Volkanovski is a guy that a lot of people like. I think he's the best fighter right now in the world. Yes, you heard it from me. I think he is the best UFC fighter. Yes, and even though he lost against Makhachev, I'm gonna say his name. I'm gonna pronounce his name, Makhachev. And Islam is one of those great fighters. He's a great wrestler, and he trains very, very hard. Taking out. He's a ground fighter. He's not a stand-up fighter. But the last fight he fought against Alexander Volkanovski, they stood up a lot. And Volkanovski, who likes to throw kicks, likes to throw punches, and uses his size. And he's a small guy, but very, very strong and stocky. He's one of the better wrestlers in the UFC. He used his style to stand up with Islam, and Islam had problems with him. I don't care what anybody says. The 5 rounds in the first fight against Volkanovski, it was very, very close. It was really down to the 5th round. I really had it 2-2 going into the 5th round. You can argue that Islam had the lead going into the 5th round, and then the 5th round was back and forth. It was very, very close, and even the card at the end of the fight, it was very, very close voting. And Volkanovski, he's been craving to get this fight back with Islam. He said he wanted to fight him again. He didn't think it was going to be 11 days before the main event, and he took short notice to fight Islam because Charles Oliveira, he had a rematch for the championship that he lost, the lightweight championship. And obviously he had a cut at practice under his eye, and he had to step away. He had to step out of the main event. So Volkanovski takes over, and this could be big for Volkanovski because there's no pressure on him in this fight. None whatsoever. And Islam, he went up there today and he spoke to the press, and they asked questions about Volkanovski and how great of a fighter he was and how much trouble he had against Volkanovski the first time. And he said, listen, I don't have any pressure. I'm the champion. I'm the best in this weight class. People are going after my belt. I'm not going after theirs. And he says that Volkanovski, nevertheless, knowing that he is going into a fight that a fighter that he already lost to a couple of months ago, he believes that the pressure is on Volkanovski. He's 11 days. He was hanging out on his couch. He had no thoughts of going and fighting Islam again, at least not this quick. And then the Oliveira situation, somebody needed to step in. And I give Alexander Volkanovski a lot of credit because he did not have to step in. He did not have to take this fight, and he did. And you have to give a fighter of this magnitude a lot of credit. And I think this fight is wide open. And Islam, if he thinks that this is going to be an easy fight, he thinks that this is going to happen a second time, it might not. And Volkanovski has nothing to lose in this fight. And if Volkanovski wins, he'll be one of only, I think, 3 fighters in I believe UFC history to hold 2 belts in 2 different weight classes. So it's going to be fun. And where does Volkanovski go if he wins the lightweight championship? Does he hold on to that belt, or does he hold on to his belt right now in the lower weight class? So it's a very interesting fight. The odds-on favorite, obviously, is Islam. He is the odds-on favorite. He is the champion, minus 340 or 340 to the odds of Volkanovski plus 270. The thing about Volkanovski, that is a good bet. If you're betting on a fight and you want to make some money, you want to put $100 down, you want to put $50 down, you can win a nice pretty penny if Volkanovski wins. And Volkanovski is quite capable of winning this fight. This is going to be a very, very close fight. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And it's going to be back and forth. Nobody's getting knocked out in this fight. And if somebody does get knocked out in this fight, it won't be Alexander Volkanovski, because this guy is a bull. And I like Islam. I like what he does. I like how he fights. But Makhachev is a guy that likes to take people down. And Volkanovski is a great wrestler, all-world wrestler. And I think that when you look at the big picture here, and it's really the battle of Russia and Australia, it could be very wide open in this fight. So I know all the fans are looking forward to this weekend and UFC 294. It is going to be fun, guys. It really is. And even the third fight on the card, the third main event, Magomed versus Johnny Walker. 2 fighters. Johnny Walker is a great knockout fighter, Brazilian fighter. He's a fantastic fighter. He really is. And he's been on a winning streak. He's been absolutely amazing. He beat Smith on his last fight. He beat Craig Walker. And I think that this guy has the capability. Walker won the fight before that. But the fight, Hill beat Walker before that. So he's on a 3-fight winning streak. I think when you look at the big picture right here, these are 2 powerhouse guys, 2 guys that like to stand up and like to, knock people's heads off. The thing about Magomed, this fight could be a lot more interesting for him, because if he wins this fight, he automatically becomes the number 1 contender. And he has been on a 5-fight winning streak. I know Blanchowicz, he fought him in December 10th, 2022. He hasn't fought all year. He really hasn't. He's coming back from an injury. It was a split decision. It was a draw. But before that, he was on a I think it was a 5-fight winning streak. He beat Smith, he beat Santos. He was on a crazy winning streak. So this fight coming up for him could really put him in position where he could be the number one lightweight contender. And whoever wins this fight, with obviously Islam and Alexander Volkanovski, could honestly fight Mohammed. So it's a very interesting card for 294. And again, even some of the other fights, the middleweight fights and the bantam fight, they're all open. And I'm telling you right now, this is one of the better UFC cards that Dana White put together in the last couple of months. So if you're going to obviously buy this card, this is a card to buy. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And there's going to be a lot of talking. Okay. I think that fight of the night, I still believe, I don't care if it was short notice, the Volkanovski fight is going to be fight of the night. I think these guys are going to go after each other. They're going to go at each other. And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't. Meaning that Islam being the favorite, and he says that he doesn't have the pressure, that Volkanovski could go into this fight and win the fight. So that's, to me, for UFC 294, that stands out to me. Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou. This is going to be very, very interesting. Okay. And I over the last couple of weeks, I don't know if anybody follows Tyson Fury. He is a funny guy. I watched his Netflix show with his family. The guy's got tremendous personality. He really, really does. But he's been pushing. He's been pushing for this fight. It's been back and forth. There was a lot of banter on when this fight is going to happen. And finally, after a few months, the fight, obviously they signed a contract and it's going to happen in a month. So I love this fight. I really do. I think it's going to be a fun fight. Fury obviously is going to sell it. That's what he likes to do. He likes to sell a product, and yeah, he speaks very highly of Ngannou, even though he's been taking shots at him. I think the fight's coming up in November, if I'm not mistaken. Speedy, is it coming up, the Ngannou fight? Is it coming up in November? I think it is. I'm not positive. Are you looking for that? I'm not sure, but I think it's in November. But you got it? You got the fight?
October 28th.
Oh, so it's next week.
Next week, yep.
So it is next week. So the Ngannou and Fury fight is next week. I thought it was in the beginning of November, but it's an interesting fight, guys. And I think if you sit here and you go back and forth and wonder what's going to happen. Obviously, Tyson Fury is the better fighter. He's the boxer. Ngannou, he's got that punch-out power. The whole thing with the UFC, they decided not to re-sign him and part ways with him. Ngannou was deciding if he was going to go back to mixed martial arts, maybe fight in Bellator, maybe fight in another organization. He decided that he wanted to box, and Tyson Fury has been pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. And now finally it's here, guys. It is here. And I think Tyson Fury, this is a fight that Tyson Fury should dominate in. He's going to be able to dance around Ngannou. Ngannou's coming off an injury. His knee isn't 100% healthy. So there's a lot of questions going into this fight for a guy like Ngannou. The thing is, Tyson Fury, we all know about his bipolar disorder and things that he has been doing over the last couple of weeks really drive people and really are going to drive people to want to watch this fight. And the whole Mike Tyson situation, if anybody doesn't know the story about Mike Tyson and Tyson Fury's father, John, actually named Tyson after Mike Tyson. So he grew up, his father was a big Mike Tyson fan. And the whole situation with this coming fight is that Tyson Fury was not happy that Mike Tyson was training him. And now you're going into a fight, and a fight that could be wide open, guys. This fight could be wide open because if Tyson doesn't dance around, and he thinks he's going into this fight thinking that this is going to be an easy fight, it's not. Ngannou has a tremendous amount of power, and we've seen him knock out people. Now, it is UFC fighters. He's never knocked out a professional boxer, and a professional boxer that is undefeated. Tyson Fury has never been knocked out before. He's been knocked down, but he's never been knocked out. So I don't know if Ngannou has the ability to compete in 8 or even 10 rounds against a guy like Tyson Fury, especially his ability to his stamina and his ability to throw punches in so many different angles. But I expect the fight will be fun, and I expect that Tyson will make sure that the crowd enjoys the fight, and he'll make sure that, just like Floyd Mayweather did with Conor McGregor, he'll make sure that the fight goes practically all the way through, because he wants everybody to win. He wants everybody to be excited and get their money's worth. So Tyson Fury is a showman, and I expect him to be a showman for this fight. But I don't think the fight's going to be anywhere close to than people think. A lot of UFC fighters think that Ngannou has a chance. I don't. Tyson Fury took this fight because it's going to sell. He's going to make close to $100 million off this fight. Ngannou is going to make probably the most money he's ever made, biggest purse. And I think it'll be interesting. I really do, because it's all about the money and it's all about being a showman. So I do believe it'll be dominated by Tyson Fury. But again, anything is possible. Oh, this is a great story, and I wanted to get into this. Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford in 2024 for the undisputed boxing championship. So here's what I'm going to say about Terence Crawford. Canelo Alvarez right now is 62-2. He has 39 KOs. And Crawford, after knocking off Errol Spence and knocking him out, practically knocking him around, he's 40-0 with 31 KOs. To jump this weight class, if Canelo agrees to it, to fight a bigger and stronger Canelo Alvarez wouldn't be smart. It wouldn't be smart. Now, he did jump a weight class. He jumped 8 pounds to fight Errol Spence and completely dominated Errol Spence. But to jump a weight class about 10 more pounds more, or even 12 more pounds more to fight a Canelo Alvarez is suicide. Absolutely suicide. And to me, I don't know if anybody watched Canelo's last fight against Charlo. Charlo is a good fighter. He's a good boxer. He really is. He absolutely dominated Charlo throughout the fight. And usually, stamina-wise, it's Canelo that dies down in the later rounds, and Charlo would be better in the later rounds. Charlo got tired really, really early in the fight. Canelo wore him down. He went after him. And then in the 7th round, he got knocked down. And Canelo just completely dominated the fight. Everybody thought that Charlo was going to give this a fight and make Canelo earn the win and earn his opportunity to knock him out, or knock him down. It really was no contest in this fight. I thought Charlo just absolutely laid a lousy goose egg in the fight. I think it just took the fight for the money. That's what I think. Canelo Alvarez just completely dominated from the 1st round all the way into the 9th and 10th round. It was just no contest. It really was. And again, Terence Crawford is a guy that I've grown to respect. The fight against Errol Spence, I did not think he was going to compete against Errol Spence. I did not. I thought that Errol Spence was the better all-around boxer who had more power. But obviously that eye situation with Errol Spence and the way Terence Crawford throws punches in so many different angles, it threw him off. And Errol Spence just could not hit him. And if Terence Crawford does that against Canelo Alvarez, it could be a long night for Canelo. But I don't know if Terence Crawford could hit enough and hit hard enough to knock down or even hurt Canelo Alvarez. Canelo has fought guys that have moved up in weight class. Now, obviously, Canelo has been nitpicking his fights. He hasn't been fighting the top dogs in his class. Benavidez has been wanting to fight him for years, okay? And he will not fight Benavidez. He will not fight Benavidez because Benavidez will probably knock him out. And with Canelo is all about making money. He's all about driving people to come and watch and pay for his pay-per-views. So Canelo Alvarez just signed, I think it was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, signed another $300 million contract. And he's all about bringing in the money he has. I think Canelo has probably 5 more fights. 5 more fights as a professional boxer. And I think he's going to step away. Why does he need to fight anymore? He's made more money as a professional boxer than even Floyd Mayweather has. And Floyd's still making millions of dollars fighting these exhibition fights. And by the way, we will get into Floyd Mayweather before I get off, with the show for the first show of Caged in MMA in a very, very long time. Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao could be fighting a second time. I'm hearing possibly at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And there is talks right now that that's going to happen. It's an exhibition fight, but nevertheless, Floyd Mayweather is going into a ring with a guy that wants blood. Lost against Floyd Mayweather with a tear in his rotator cuff. And I don't know if the old Floyd Mayweather and the old Manny Pacquiao would make any sense, but hey, it'll put fannies in the seats and it'll bring them a lot of money. And Manny Pacquiao don't need the money, either does Floyd Mayweather. As Floyd Mayweather keeps flying to Gucci stores around the world, buying $4 or $5 million watches. So I don't think money is an object to obviously Floyd Mayweather, but it's going to be very interesting if Manny Pacquiao and Floyd actually tie the knot for a second time. But to get back to the Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez fight, this is probably going to happen, and I'm going to tell you why. Canelo is getting older, and Canelo wants to fight guys that are going to put fannies in the seats, buy his pay-per-view, and he knows he has an advantage against Terrence Crawford. He knows he has a huge weight, advantage, at least 20 pounds, against Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford, before he fought against Errol Spence, I think he fought Errol Spence at 148, I think it was, 147. He was fighting at 139, 140. So he had to gain 7-8 pounds. Now against Canelo, you're talking about possibly 159, 160. You're talking about 20 more pounds over your weight class that you've been fighting in for the last, I would say, 10 years. So I don't know if this makes sense for Terrence, but Terrence is trying to make as much money as he possibly can. He made his money against Errol Spence Jr. It wasn't because of him. He wasn't the headlining guy on that card, believe it or not. It was Errol Spence. Errol Spence made more money losing against Terrence Crawford than Terrence Crawford won as a winner and winning the championship. So, again, Terrence Crawford's trying to make a lot of money. If he fights Canelo, he can make 50. He can make $40 million. He can set his family up very, very well for the rest of his life and rest of his family's life. So he's trying to get as many fights as he can. I think Terrence Crawford's 35 years old, 34 years old. He's not getting any younger. How many big fights does he have left? So this is going to be very interesting. And does Terrence Crawford fight Errol Spence for the second time before he fights Canelo, or does he fight Canelo and then fight Errol Spence? And Errol Spence said he wants to have he wants to fight a second time against Terrence Crawford, but there is no dates set for them to get back into the ring, which tells me that Errol Spence is still healing from the last fight. So that's something interesting that people are going to be talking about in the new year in 2024. Charles Oliveira says he wants to fight Conor McGregor or anybody or whoever wins the 294 fight against Volkanovski and Islam. Oliveira wants to fight Conor McGregor because of money. Conor McGregor is coming back. He's supposed to fight Chandler. I don't know if that fight's going to happen. It seems like the whole Gaethje situation, him winning the title, some people believe that Conor wants to fight Gaethje and Gaethje wants to fight Conor. Conor wants to come back automatically and fight for a title. But I don't know if the UFC is going to automatically just give him a title shot. Now, it will put fannies in the seats. And again, the UFC is trying to find cards that is going to draw people to buy the pay-per-views. Dana White has come out and said it over the last couple of months. He says that he wants to drive people to come, and he wants to put the best pay-per-views together now, coming up at the end of the year and the beginning of next year. And usually in December, December 31st, New Year's or New Year's Eve, UFC puts on their best fights. They put their best card together. Now, obviously, Stipe and John Jones, UFC 295 is going to be a big card. It's going to be in Madison Square Garden. John Jones is a Buffalo native, a New York native. So he loves the fact that he's going to be in Madison. Stipe is from Wisconsin. He's a firefighter. and he wants to regain that title. So this could be Stipe's last fight if he loses against John Jones. Now, I don't know if John Jones beats Stipe like he did in his last fight. I could see John Jones retiring after this Stipe fight. He wanted to fight Ngannou. Ngannou's no longer with the UFC. He automatically does not want to fight John Jones. He already came out and said that he doesn't even know if he'll do MMA again. He wants to box. So you're looking at John Jones. He has nobody else to fight after Stipe. What heavyweight is out there that could challenge a guy like John Jones? So there's a lot of questions here. And again, if you're a mixed martial arts fan, and I'm going to say this because I'm trying to be honest here. If you're a mixed martial arts fan, do you want to see Conor McGregor come back? Is Conor the guy that's going to draw more people to watch the UFC at the end of the year or in the beginning of next year? Because their numbers are right there. Their numbers are still up. They're not doing better than boxing right now. They're not, because there are much better boxers right now in certain weight classes. And the Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford fight broke records. I mean, look what Jake Paul's doing right now. Jake Paul's not even a real boxer, and he's drawing big pay-per-views. You're talking to Jake Paul. I think his last fight, he brought in about $40 million. This guy was on Disney Channel. This guy, him and his brother Logan, who just came back. Logan fought a pay-per-view fight against this guy Dylan. I've never even heard of this guy. Something happened between him and his fiance, Logan Paul's fiance, and this guy Dylan posted up pictures and videos of his fiance talking about penis sizes and all this other stuff. And then, they sit in a room, they challenge each other in a boxing match, and I don't think that guy Dylan threw one punch in the fight, except at the end of the fight, when the fight was called. That was an embarrassing fight by Logan Paul. He did throw more punches, but Jake Paul's a better fighter than Logan. There's no question that he is, but how much better? And Conor McGregor, he's turned into another Jake Paul. And I'm not saying Conor McGregor isn't one of the great UFC fighters of this era, because he is. Everything that he did for the UFC, drawing, not only bringing the Irish fan, but bringing so many new fans to watch the UFC. He's no question one of the big headlining guys for the UFC, faces of the UFC over the last 20 years. I mean, I would say the last 20 years, he's been one of the biggest faces for the UFC. But the problem with Conor McGregor is Conor McGregor, after he fought Floyd Mayweather and he made his $100 million and he started his own whiskey, and all the injuries started to happen, and his things on and off out of the octagon has caused him problems. He's been away from mixed martial arts for over 3 years. To step back into the octagon against these world championship fighters. Are you kidding me? If he went into the octagon right now with Charles Oliveira, what do you think will happen in that fight? Honestly, any UFC fans out there, and I'm sure there's a ton of them listening to the show right now, because I've sent it out throughout the post, throughout so many different social media and different markets. How many people believe that Conor McGregor is going to give Charles Oliveira a fight? The only reason why Charles Oliveira wants to fight him is because he knows that Conor McGregor will sell out the stadium that they fight in. That's it. Conor McGregor isn't the same fighter when he fought Jose Aldo. He's not the same fighter when he conquered the UFC and won 2 championships in 2 different weight classes. He was the first to do that. He's not there anymore. I think he's worth like $500 million. And congratulations to him for a guy that was on welfare about 10 years ago, making all the money that he has brought in, and he's brought in through endorsements and selling himself and advertising and marketing himself. Fantastic. Good for him. But the UFC is trying to find that next superstar, that next face of the organization. McNally is a guy that people like. his colored hair, his craziness in the ring, in the octagon. Everybody likes him. He could be the next guy. He could be the next guy that's going to draw so many new UFC fans. Sean McMalley, whatever his name is. Sean. He's fun to watch. There's no question that he is. He's a great stand-up fighter. And he tried, and listen, everybody wants to mimic what Conor McGregor did. And Conor McGregor, after the Canelo Alvarez fight against Charlo, he was attacking Canelo Alvarez all over social media, all over Twitter, trying to get Canelo to budge and bite. And Canelo responded to everything that Conor McGregor was doing on social media. Here's the thing. Canelo doesn't need to fight Conor. Every single fight Canelo has, he's making $40 to $50 million. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who it is, because pay-per-view bouts, he has all the Mexicans buying the pay-per-views, all the people from Vegas that love him, that follow him. You're talking about all the Canelo Alvarez fans. They're all buying his pay-per-views. It doesn't matter who he's fighting, what garbage he's fighting. And by the way, Canelo Alvarez, in his last 7-8 fights, probably 6 of them have been absolute garbage. Garbage fighters. Triple G should have won both fights. Well, I think they fought 3 times, but 2 out of the 3 times, I believe Triple G won. Canelo got away with that. Canelo's been and has gotten away with a lot of fighters and a lot of fights over the years, because boxing knows that he is their lead guy. He is their moneymaker. Over the years, Mike Tyson, remember in the 80s, in the early 90s, it was all about Mike Tyson. He was the moneymaker. Mike Tyson was making millions and millions of dollars because he would sell out pay-per-views. He was the first $100 million fighter for a fight. He's the first fighter to make $100 million off of one fight. Now you're seeing that all the time. Big fights. Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, I think it drew one of the most purses, most money when it comes to purses in the past year. It was a huge draw. And that's what these organizations are trying to do. That's what boxing is trying to do. And that's what the mixed martial arts world is trying to do. And Dana White knows that the MMA world was so high when Conor McGregor was on top of the world and John Jones was on top of the world. John Jones stepped away because he wanted to fight in the heavyweight division. He stepped away for almost 4 years, 3.5 years to become a solid heavyweight guy before he had to fight. And now he only wants to fight one more fighter. He came out and said if he fights Stipe and he dominates Stipe, he might retire. After 3.5 years trying to get in shape for that heavyweight division, he's only going to fight 2 fights and he's going to retire. But that's the way it's going. UFC fighters don't last that long. John Jones is 30, 31 years old, maybe a little bit older than that. He's going to retire at the age of 33, 34. Conor McGregor doesn't seem like he ever wants to walk away from mixed martial arts. He's made all this money and wants to get back into the octagon. I have no idea why Conor McGregor wants to get back into the octagon. Okay, I have no idea why he would be thinking to get back into the octagon. But when you have the love and a passion to get in the ring and compete, that's what Conor McGregor is. I have to give Conor a lot of credit for that. I don't think he's the same fighter he once was, but I have to give him credit that he's willing to get back in the octagon, even being away from mixed martial arts for 3 years, and willing to get into an octagon with some of the best fighters in the world. Some of the best mixed martial artists in the world. So it's, when you look at this, these are stories that are going to grow legs. Another Conor McGregor story, I'm going to read this. Conor McGregor undergoes an anti-doping test, and he gives USADA agents beer and whiskey while he is getting his tests. I'll read this quickly. Fighter Conor McGregor underwent drug testing for the first time in 2 years. The fighter returned to the USADA testing pool, and at the end of his first test, he gave agents a couple of liquor bottles. In the post of X, formerly Twitter, the Irish fighter indicated I was tested to separate times yesterday, and with two separate times yesterday, and within an hour of each other, blood and urine, 3 samples of each were requested and given in both instances, which means Conor McGregor is getting ready to fight. He is getting ready to fight. Now, if you look at Conor McGregor right now and you look at the size and you look at the weight that he's put on, I don't know what class he's going to fight in. Is he going to fight in 170, 180? I think right now he's walking at 185, 180. If you look at the video that he posted up the other day, he's not the same fighter. And then he was posting up fights. He was posting up practices a couple of weeks ago where he looked like he lost a ton of weight. So I don't know what to expect with Conor McGregor. But Dana White did say the other day that he still believes that him and Michael Chandler will be fighting sometime at the end of this year. And Michael Chandler, I don't know if anybody watched The Next Ultimate Fighter. They don't like each other. Conor obviously didn't want to show up to certain practices and all that other stuff. And he came late to the fights, and it pissed off Michael Chandler, and it turned really ugly at the end of The Next Ultimate Fighter. There's no question that it did. And I listen, Michael Chandler is not going to be an easy fight for Conor McGregor. Now, do I think Conor's a better fighter than Michael Chandler? Yes. But Michael Chandler will stand in. He'll take a beating. We've seen it. We saw it against Justin Gaethje. He will take a beating, and he will keep on ticking. He'll keep coming after you. So Conor better be ready for this. He will stand up with Conor. He won't take him down. This will be a stand-up fight. Conor McGregor is a great boxer. Southpaw, likes to throw that jab, likes to throw that power left hand. I'm telling you, this is not going to be an easy fight for Conor McGregor. But the anti-doping thing tells me that Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will fight this year. If you're taking an anti-doping test right now, you're more than likely going to fight in the next 3 months. So I guess one way or another, this fight will happen sometime in December. So if you're a Conor McGregor fan, you should be excited if you read this story. Definitely an interesting story. And then I think there is another story. Here it is. MMA fighters' retirement benefit passed becomes California law starting in 2024. I'm going to read this quickly. California MMA fighters will now enjoy retirement benefits if they meet vesting requirements, thanks to the bill signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom on Sunday. Bill AB 1136, drafted by California Assemblyman Matt Haney, mirrors a pension fund established in 1982 for professional boxers in California that funded by a tax on a ticket sales and allows them to cash out when they schedule the required number of rounds in the state. So as long as they fight a certain amount of rounds in the state and they obviously put in for a pension plan, they could retire. When they are ready to retire, they're going to get benefits. And that goes for all of the states eventually. I think that where all the fights are happening, I think it's almost in 50 states. I think all of those states should have a benefit plan for all fighters, especially MMA fighters. I think that mixed martial arts and Dana White, as much as Dana White has grown this sport very, very well, the UFC has become a multi-billion-dollar organization. He's made a ton of money. I think he sold his half of the UFC. He's still the president. He's still making about $20-something million a year. He's getting paid for that. And he made about almost $300 million off the sale of the UFC. You look at Dana White. Dana White has not looked to protect the fighters. As a matter of fact, he's hurt a lot of fighters in the past because he won't pay them. A lot of these fighters that are fighting on these undercards are only making $10,000. And Dana could argue all he wants, and he can say, oh, well, they're making this and they're making that. The only way you're going to make money is if you're a co-main event or you're the main event. I've seen this before. And again, the UFC, if you're not a draw, even if you're winning, they could fire you. Mighty Mouse, if you remember, he was the best fighter in the UFC at one point. Because he wasn't a draw, the UFC decided to part ways with him. Didn't want to extend him because there was nobody in his weight class at 105, 115 that could fight him, that could beat him. So he had to step away. And Mighty Mouse only had, I think he lost one fight in the UFC in his whole career. So Dana White has not protected the fighters, and he hasn't given the fighters what they deserve. Prize fighters are making millions and millions of dollars. We all know that. All these prize fighters. Look at Terrence Crawford. It took him a while, but he's a prize fighter. He's never made the money he's made off the Errol Spence fight. I think Terrence Crawford made about $25 million off the Errol Spence fight. Somewhere between $20 and $30 million he made off the Errol Spence fight. He's never made that kind of money. I think the most he's ever made, well, he admitting to make was like $4 million. He quadrupled that in the Errol Spence fight. And he wants to cash in now. After dominating against one of the best boxers in the world, he wants to fight Canelo because he knows it will be a big draw and he knows people will pay for the pay-per-view. With the UFC, what is a big draw for the UFC right now? Stipe is old. John Jones is getting up there in age. John Jones is looking to retire. Stipe already said that if he loses this fight, he's probably going to retire from mixed martial arts. So you have two heavyweights right now, two of the top heavyweights, if not the best heavyweights in the UFC that are fighting. And if one of them, if John Jones wins, he's retiring possibly. And if Stipe loses, he's retiring. So you might have two guys to retire in the same fight. So where is the UFC going in the heavyweight division? Now that Nagano is gone, he's fighting Tyson Fury. He wants to move forward in the boxing world. He wants to be a boxer. You have Conor McGregor, who is going to come back to the UFC, but now he's challenging Canelo Alvarez because he wants to make big money, just like he did with Floyd Mayweather. But here's the problem with Conor right now. He hasn't fought enough. He hasn't fought enough in 3 years. So how much is it going to be a draw for the boxing world to actually pay and watch a pay-per-view of Canelo Alvarez and Conor McGregor? Because it would be an absolute onslaught. I don't think it'll be much of a fight. So you sit here and you're trying to find out and figure out where the UFC is going. Where is boxing going? And that's a good question. That's a good question. I think there's a lot of good young boxers right now. A lot of them. So there are things that really stand out to me. If you're a boxing fan, you should be very, very excited for some of these weight classes and some of these light heavyweights and light middleweights that are coming up and moving up. And me and Eric Martini talk about it all the time. We speak about Errol Spence and even Terrence Crawford. Errol Spence is 29, 30 years old. He's getting, after that car accident, he hasn't been the same fighter. I mean, he's won all his fights before the Terrence Crawford fight, but he was nitpicking his fights. He did fight good fighters, but he was nitpicking his fights. Terrence Crawford has been the best fighter Errol Spence has ever fought against. And that's not saying anything and that's not taking shots at Errol Spence because he's fought some really good fighters. But again, the UFC is trying to find that next. And Volkanovski is a guy that I really, really enjoy watching. And if he could somehow beat Islam on Saturday, and I think he could. And if you're a betting man, I would bet on Volkanovski because he's going into this fight. He has no pressure on him whatsoever. None whatsoever. And I don't care what Islam says. I don't care what he says because he's going into a fight that he wasn't training for Volkanovski. He was training for to fight Charles Oliveira, who, by the way, he dominated against when he fought Charles Oliveira. Dominated. He did not dominate against Volkanovski. It was a very close fight. And again, I'll tell you again, it could go either way. Either way. And it's an early fight, by the way. It's at 2 Eastern time. It's 2 p.m. Volkanovski and Islam. So if you're a UFC fan, you better get ready. You better get into your pubs and everything and find your seat on Saturday afternoon because this is going to be brawl. It's going to be a great fight. And there's one more story I wanted to get into before I go. And yes, I am back, ladies and gentlemen. I am back here for Caged in MMA. No more Anthony Angerosi, but we will be doing this probably twice a month. I'm going to fill this in. It's going to be an hour show twice a month for all you mixed martial arts, combat sports, and boxing fans. I will get into all the top stories throughout the 2-week span, pay-per-views, boxing pay-per-views, MMA pay-per-views, and we'll go with the ins and outs of the fights and an upcoming fight and cards that everybody's looking forward to. Showtime is done with boxing, MMA at the end of 2023. In an internal email, Paramount executives informed employees that Showtime Sports, which oversaw major boxing events involving fighters like Floyd Mayweather and Tank Davis, as well as Bellator MMA, will be shut down at the end of 2023. Paramount president and CEO Chris McGrath stated in the email, Showtime will be shifting resources towards more scripted material moving forward to drive subscribers to the network, as well as the streaming service of Paramount. So, this is a shame. Boxing on HBO was a huge draw growing up. If you're a boxing fan and you followed boxing in the mid-90s and early 2000s, when boxing was taken off of HBO, it really killed the fight game. Because it was boxing after dark on HBO. It was fantastic. You get to see all these young up-and-coming fighters. It was so fun and so interesting. That was when I got introduced to Manny Pacquiao for the first time. And now HBO doesn't have it, and now Showtime, over the last couple of years, I know it hasn't been a big draw. I don't like the broadcasters there, the analysts that they have over there at Showtime. I think they're horrible. I really do. I think shame on Showtime for doing what they did. I just don't think they didn't invest enough money into certain things that would have grew the sport on Showtime. They didn't do it. And MMA, Bellator, I know UFC didn't have a contract. UFC had a contract with ESPN and Disney. They were never going to Showtime. But Bellator, which is the other MMA organization, they don't have superstar fighters. They don't have a Conor McGregor. They don't have a John Jones. They don't have any of those guys that was a draw to mixed martial arts. And that was the problem with Bellator. That's why Bellator never grew. Now you have all these championships. You have Bare Knuckles, and maybe Showtime decides to bring Bare Knuckles to their industry. But it seems like no more sports on Showtime, and that sucks because boxing, it was the one place that you can look on Saturday nights and certain Saturday nights to watch a boxing fight. Some of these new and upcoming fighters, some of these new heavyweights, some of these new light middleweights, and bantamweights and all that other stuff. We're not going to see that anymore. So where are you going to have the opportunity to watch boxing again? Now, ESPN brought boxing back. They have boxing overnight, but is ESPN going to do pay-per-views now? Is Danza going to drive boxing pay-per-views now more than they've ever had? That's a problem right now. And again, boxing is prize fighting, and people are huge boxing fans around the country. Maybe there's another boxing association that's going to buy a cable organization that is going to turn it into another, HBO or Showtime. I don't know. But if you're a boxing fan, not even an MMA fan, because how many people watch Bellator? Honestly, how many people are driven to watch Bellator? It's either UFC, pay-per-views, or nothing when it comes to mixed martial arts. It used to be Pride. I mean, Pride was so big. I remember when that was on, and there were so many different organizations to watch when it came to mixed martial arts. They don't have it anymore. It's the UFC or bust. And that's why a lot of these fighters that want to become professional, they want to get that UFC contract. They're all about it. And some of these mixed martial artists that are in the UFC, they decide to retire from the UFC to go into boxing because there's more money invested into boxing for boxing fans and boxing promoters. So you sit here. I mean, look at Oscar De La Hoya. He tried to bring MMA, to De La Hoya Promotions or whatever, Golden Boy Promotions. It didn't work. He brought two old guys that fought in the UFC that looked like a bunch of paperweights in the ring. In Ortiz and Liddell. Nobody wanted to see that fight again. Liddell is an old man, and Ortiz, he's got to worry about his ex-girlfriend stealing his kids. So I think this story, this is a horrible story. If you're a mixed martial arts, combat sports, boxing fan, and you hear that Showtime is parting ways with boxing and MMA, this is horrible. It's horrible for the fight game. It's horrible for the combat sports game. And you wonder where mixed martial arts is going. Where's boxing going? There are great fighters. There's no question. I just said there's a ton. I could give you a list of guys that if you're a boxing fan, you should be excited for. So there's going to be a lot of questions moving forward in the mixed martial arts world, but we already know that MMA and the UFC have a contract with ESPN and Disney. So their pay-per-views are on ESPN pay-per-view, so they have a major company that supports what they do, UFC. And Dana White jumped on it pretty good. Where's boxing going? Are they going to jump on Danza? Are they going to have an exclusive contract with them? I don't know, but boxing needs to figure this out because now that Showtime will not be playing any of their exclusive fights, that is a huge, huge problem moving forward. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the final take of tonight's show, Caged in MMA. It's the first show back. We will be back in 2 weeks, Friday night at 8 o'clock, right after Game On. So 2 weeks from now, send me texts, send me DMs on any of the MMA or boxing stories you want me to get into in 2 weeks, and I'll do my research and we will get into it when we come back in 2 weeks. Thank you to all the fans. Thank you to people listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and thank you for listening to me. I will be bringing guests on this show in the near future, so it's not just going to be me. I'll bring in special co-hosts to join me. Maybe Eric Martini. He's a big boxing guy. I'll have him come on maybe one show with me and argue boxing and combat sports with me. I have other big mixed martial arts promoters. Anthony Angerosi might come on the show just to be a guest, so that will be fun. I could bring him on and talk a little mixed martial arts with him as well. I'm going to bring in some special guests, so definitely stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you to all the fans. Thank you to all the MMA, boxing, combat sports fans, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.